Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole for September 18th. Ms. Volk, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Wood,
Here.
Councilmember Garza,
Here.
Councilmember Hussein,
Here.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Here.
Councilmember Spitzley, Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Cost.
Here.
You have 6 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Vice President Garza, we have the minutes in front of us.
Okay, I make a motion to move the minutes of the September 11th meeting as written.
I have a motion on the minutes. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. At this point, this is the opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to address the council, please come up to the dais, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this time?
Loretta Stanaway. After listening to all the pros and cons the last time around for that event facility, I am leaning towards thinking it might be better to give this guy a chance to have a specific outlined step, of a list of steps of things that he must do, timelines he must do them within, and what happens if he doesn't meet those. It's probably a better idea, I think, to give him a chance to operate in a proper fashion than to remove that source of activity for one of our most vulnerable populations. So that's just my 2 cents on that. On the Storm Disaster Contingency Fund, that's predominantly, from what I could tell, directed for the Board of Water and Light. Board of Water and Light makes enough money off of us and continues to increase rates and continues to increase their profit margins, and I think that they need to cover that $500,000 themselves without us tapping into other contingencies that could be used for other reasons. There's not an unlimited source of money. I mean, you take it from one place, you've got to get it from another place. It doesn't just grow on a tree. Budget priorities, I took a look at those, and I think that they all look pretty good. I was hoping that there would be more specific directions towards the 4 things that I consider to be the predominant needs of the city, but I'll accept the way they are there. The warming and cooling centers, once again, I think that the direction the city is looking at going in is the wrong direction. I think you need to look at 4 centers equally located throughout the city that are community centers that are already open and running 5 days a week, normal business hours, and you would only be covering the additional expense when necessary for evenings, and you would probably at the most be looking at 45 days a year between heating and cooling. And on the relocation of facilities, I haven't heard anyone say anything yet about what happens when City Hall moves and the new facility is up on Washington. What happens to the LPD current building? That's a separate facility from City Hall, is my understanding anyway. So what's happening with that? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
How you doing? My name is Terrence Cooper. I'm working with Advanced Peace Lansing right now, and I'm coming here in support of Ryan. I hope you guys don't have your mind made up. I want you guys to know that Ryan's been in cahoots with me and a couple other people, and I think there's some positive things that we can do to attract or to do something different with this gun violence stuff. You guys ain't on the streets every day. None of us are on the streets every day like we are. It's a lot of stuff going on. That place could actually be a positive thing, and we already got like some collaborations going on where we want to use that building to be a positive space and make some kind of like, you have to be doing the right thing to be able to come to these kind of events. So from somebody on the front line of your streets every day, doing advanced peace, going after these people that you guys don't want to deal with, we're doing that every day, and I'm telling you, taking that away from us is just gonna give our kids more time. And more time mean more bodies, so I hope y'all ain't got y'all minds made up about that. Thanks for listening to me. I'm gonna get out of here. I don't do this stuff.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
Michael Lynn. First, I want to start off by apologizing to Spatafor because I made accusation last week that you guys wanted more time or just in order to prolong this because you didn't think you had the votes. And I think I might have been wrong with that. And he stopped me and spoke to that. And I appreciate that conversation because it goes a long way to show that you guys are going to try to make a meaningful decision today and not just snap decision or that you had your minds made up already. So I do appreciate that. Through conversation, obviously, as Terrence just said, with all of us in the community, we do want to see this place stay here. I've also had conversation with council members that you guys have some really valid concerns about Logan Square in general. And it sucks the position that you all are in and that we all are in because some of the concerns you had, again, are really valid. But I think that after I had the conversation and understood where your guys' perspective was on Logan Square, I went back to Ryan and had more conversation about what could be done about that parking lot. And, you know, I think the benefits of keeping that space there with a new plan to secure the parking lot could benefit us tremendously. If you think about the times that he may be there, if it's not a teen event or if it's anything else and he has to be securing that parking lot during that time, that's something nobody else is willing to do. So those could be every weekend that could be happening, right? He's taking that upon himself. So I don't know what, Peter, you came up with as far as options you guys have. I hope that it's not just jump straight to the core and just get rid of the license, and maybe there's something else that can be done, whether it's a probationary period, warnings, or whatever the case is, so we're not just chopping this business off at the heel. But outside of that, I appreciate you. It's the first time I'm ever gonna not talk my whole 3 minutes, y'all. You should applaud that. But I appreciate y'all, again, having some thought into this. And, you know, through conversations I've had with council members, you guys have given this thought. It wasn't just we're just gonna slam the door on this. So I do appreciate that and look forward to what you guys come up with.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to address the council?
Hello, Erica Lynn. I too want to speak on the potential revoking of the Energy Event Center's license. I was pleased that there was a pause. I was hoping that it was done with intention. It seems like it was, and I hope that the intention was to gather more information. Throughout the process of gathering more information, I do hope that part of that information gathering was to see what options are actually on the table outside of just that. The reason why I say that is I'm very much a both and person, so I understand that there are obviously things that could have been done differently. Is there accountability to be had? Absolutely. But what I think is more important is to recognize the fact that the problems that exist in the Logan Square parking lot existed long before Ryan Cabell came and opened Energy Event Center, and they absolutely will exist after if we as a community, if this body, if the city does not do something formidable about that. So when we're talking about potentially going straight to revoking someone's license, I think we're really taking a whole lot of accountability off the table that exists, because what we need to do is stand by the notion that we are saying we want to build up the south side of Lansing. It's the reason why the MLK Corridor Authority was built, right? It's the reason why the time and the money and the resources and the efforts were put into forming that, because we want to see that corridor thrive. How do we do that? We welcome people that want to come in and do business in that area, but we also have to support them when they do that. And we have to recognize that they're coming into a situation that they also don't have control over. If we as a city, if the LPD doesn't have control over that arena, we can't set the bar so high to someone to say, you now carry that burden only. I think there are a lot of options outside of that, i.e. some steps, a plan. There are so many options that we can do to show that we actually do support small businesses coming to the south side of Lansing and recognizing that there are issues that exist there that we can work together to address versus just saying, nope, you're done. Outside of that, real quick, I did want to speak also on the warming and cooling centers. I'm just going to remind again, I really would like this body to look at a plan that I sent you all last year. It is something that was done in Alaska, and I really, truly think that that plan is something that could work in Lansing, Michigan. It is intended to be cost effective, and it uses the existing resources that we have in our city already in order to start the process of having warming and cooling centers on each side of town that are accessible, and it doesn't have to be cost prohibitive. So I just wanted to end with that. I will resend it so I can bump it up to your email again, but again, it's a whole warming and cooling center plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
Good evening. My name is Al Phillips. I'm returning from last week to follow up on hopefully the progress of something that I feel should be plain and simple. As you guys know, since last Monday, we've had several more shootings around. We've had a stabbing. They actually just fished a body out of the water today. So with the problems that are plaguing Lansing, I just really feel like for fingers to be pointed at a business person that's trying to uplift and beautify the city, that's bringing things that we don't have, that are not city provided, that's come out of his own pocket. I really don't feel that this license revoking should go on. Now, Mr. Hussein, correct? Okay, I live in your ward. I would also I will offer my services to sit down with you and we come up with some ideas and some things to do to help around this city, because it needs it. And a lot more heads are better than one. So if we can get no loitering signs around the stores, the problems that these places happen. You know, we got a lot of issues going on around here, and I know everybody can't do everything by themselves, but we can't blame one person for every problem. I guarantee you, if we come back here again next week, we're gonna have more shootings that have taken place, more stabbings that have taken place, armed robberies, whatever it goes on. But I really don't feel that finger pointing should be going on, and that's what I feel is going on when you're trying to blame one person for an incident outside of his control. He had to worry about his safety as well. So staying inside his building for his safety. Can you imagine what would have happened had he went out there to ask somebody to leave from a parking lot that big that he doesn't own, and that many gunshots were flying around there anyway? Then we possibly would have had a homicide. We don't want that, especially for somebody that's bringing revenue and business to this city. So I think y'all should reconsider, and again, I ask everyone to be fair about it. We can't make this his problem and it's his fault, but we're gonna stand by him. So whatever he needs to do, we're gonna stand by him. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to address the council at this time?
Summer Green, also following up from last week. I'm also a native of Flint, Michigan, a resident recently of Lansing since 2019. And I can't stress enough the importance of that shelter in place that Ryan and his staff took that possibly could have saved my baby's life. So we're talking about all this violence and all this stuff. He possibly saved her life. So I pretty much shared all the information as far as the technicalities last week. But there is one thing that comes to mind, and that's Booker T. Washington. Success is to be measured not so much by the position which one holds in life, but by the obstacles one has overcome while trying to succeed. And I support Ryan Cabell in this obstacle.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Name William Watkins, and the event center holds a bunch of positivity that can happen as far as curbing gun violence and some of the older folks coming together, having a meeting place with the younger generation to try to curb all the gun violence and put the guns down and go about it a different way, as far as a political way, as far as talking out the beefs, the problems, or whatever the case may be. And everything that happened out there is messed up, but yet it could have been avoided if there would have been like a police present in the parking lot with the lights going. Downtown on Fridays and Saturdays, it'd be around 4 or 5 police out there, probably more than that, with their lights going, and it curbed and stopped a lot of violence that could have happened downtown, but still people done got shot and killed downtown. But yeah, if it would have been a police present or something like that in the parking lot implemented to curb the knuckleheads and everything, it could have been avoided. But yeah, I stand behind Ryan, and I'm a native of Lansing for the last 51 years, and I know a lot of folks around here that is willing to come together and talk about the gun violence and try to get the at-risk youth together. And that's a good place where we can go and sit down and have a meet and greet and try to squash a lot of this gang activity and beef that's going on around Lansing. And it's a bunch of young kids that don't have nobody to look up to. Don't have no OGs in their lives, fathers or some locked up in prison, dead or any, they just need somebody that's older that have been there, been in that position to talk to them, let them know that the rap music and the drugs and all this right there is not it. And with that being said, I used to be one of them little knucklehead kids that didn't have no guidance until I learned how to think before I react and turn my life around. So with that being said, there's some OGs that's willing to come together and get the younger heads, which is the younger people together to try to squash a lot of this beef and gun violence and, try to protect our city, protect our neighborhoods. And the event center would be a good place to have everything resonate from.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
How y'all doing?
Could you state your name
I'm
for
a
the
bit
record,
jet
please?
lagged. My name is Damani Dudley. I just flew up here from Atlanta. Like my boy Ryan right here, I'm originally from Flint, Michigan. We went to high school together, Flint Northern High School. And we've also always called Lansing our second home. I had a previous statement that my lawyer was supposed to read, Dan, but he didn't read it at the last meeting. So I'll just speak from the heart. I've known this brother since the 90s, and he's always one of the most uplifting, positive brothers that you will know. He's the first person on the dance floor. He's the first person with a mic in his hand. Good times all around. And that's important to note because I've been watching this narrative being shared. I'm at the gym at the West End in Atlanta, and CNN runs the same story about what we're talking about. And it wasn't a shootout. It was a shootout, not a mass shooting. Maybe you brother. You know what I'm saying? My mama voted for you, by the way. Jackson. And this narrative has been shared, and you don't even know this man. This man put a lot into this venue. He's not only one of the most positive and uplifting people that you're going to find here in Lansing, but he has done so much for our community back home in Flint. And now he's waiting to share it here. We talk about the second event that led to this meeting here. There was an event before that with children, all ages, red Solo cups. Yeah, no alcohol. People came and picked up their kids, had a great time, had a good time, and everybody went home. Kind of tough to monitor. So I'm gonna give you all some advice of what I know being in Atlanta. Sometimes having a police cruiser outside of some of these events that go down can make all the difference in the world. Just one police cruiser. The police here, I noticed, tend to favor the Nut House and Tin Can 5 to 7 cars deep in the middle of Michigan Avenue. We gotta change that. We need police spread all around. And everybody has to do their job. Parents have to parent, teachers have to teach. But this man did his job. He kept 400 kids safe inside of his venue. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
My name is Speak. I'm a promoter also in the city, been promoting here for over 20 years. Now, what we do is we take care of our city the best that we can. We provide entertainment and we provide safe entertainment for our city. And what Ryan has done is done something that our city needs. Our city lacks something for our youth. Our youth is killing each other on a regular. Our youth is shooting on a regular. Our youth needs something different to do. And what's been going on is things has been set up. Ryan has started this doing something for the youth. He's already in coordinates with other programs that does things for the youth, set up to give them an outlet because there's nothing else in the city. The city doesn't care about its youth, which is the truth. Only thing that cares about its youth is us, the city, the community. So the things that we do to try to help each other, we need you to help us do it. Now what Ryan's been doing, he's been helping us out. Now what's been going on in Logan Square, you've been knowing about it. You've been doing nothing about it, nothing. Now since you find somebody in Logan Square, now you want to blame him for something that you know has been going on. You can't fault that man for an issue that the city has been had. So you can't blame him for that issue. Now when it comes to what he did and what he had going on, everything was safe, everything was cool. Yes, okay, he has to protect 1,500 feet outside of the place. What happened was within the 1,500 feet. Okay, that happened. Take responsibility for it. But there's also rules and a process of things that has to happen when things happen. The process is he has to have a warning. He has to have a warning. And then you get another warning with a fine. He hasn't had a warning with a fine. And it's automatically you want to take somebody's license that's doing something that's helping the community and giving people something to do, and it's actually helping us. I don't understand that. We scream for help from the city, and the city ignores us. The city doesn't hear us as we scream. So what we do is we create our own mechanisms to help within ourselves. And then as soon as something within the city happens, you come and you want to blame us or use us as the fault or as the fall for the things that's already wrong in the city, and all we're doing is fixing the things that we can fix. That's all we're doing. And just as the man told you before, like I told you last week, you know the city hangs out in parking lots ever since COVID. So why doesn't the police automatically just park in the parking lots that people hang out in? That's going to take the things down so much because they see the police presence. You taking his license does nothing. Does nothing. That stuff happened in the parking lot of Logan Square, and then what happened? Every night, we had it every night. So that should have told you there, okay, it wasn't that guy, it wasn't him. It's a problem that we have in our community. And the problem that we are trying to fix is we're trying to have outlets for our youth. We're trying to help our parents tell them how to parent, how to watch their kid. Because their parents are the ones that come to our events. They come, they talk to us, they try to get in for cheap. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
Hello, Council. I'm the Minister's Taft, and I wasn't gonna speak, but I mean, we going around in circles. That shooting had nothing to do with him or the Energy Event Center. As a minister and a real triple OG with my ear to the street, that was a premeditated shooting. That was gonna happen regardless. That shooting was a result of the other two mass shootings that happened on the 4th of July. On the 4th of July, we had 2 mass shootings occur with 9 people shot and nobody arrested. We dealing with some serial shooters here in Lansing. And that's what occurred that night. That was gonna happen regardless. So shutting him down ain't gonna stop the mass shootings. And I just wanna leave it with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I was there the day that Ryan had the event, and it was very safe.
Your name?
My name is Markel. Yes, and I just like to let everybody know I was there the night of the event, and the event was very safe. I didn't know nothing went on. I left, and I go by Logan Square all the time. Logan Square, the parking lot after the club is always going crazy. It's never safe. It's going crazy. Sometimes the police will even be there in the parking lot, and it's still not getting shut down. So for the person that goes and does it the right way, I don't think this is the right thing to do. We got all these people not doing it the right way. We should be dealing with them and not the person that comes and does it the right way, because then everybody like forget doing it the right way. We just gonna do it the wrong way. There's gonna be all type of crazy stuff going on.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Seeing none.
Hello, my name is Charity Jones, and I've been a Lansing resident for over 30 years. I've raised 4 adult children and I have 1 minor. All of my adult children have left the Lansing area to pursue their careers, their professions, and just other opportunities because Lansing doesn't have anything for them. On top of the safety issue, Lansing has been out of control for many years. Nothing's been done about it. At times, I can't even take my daughter to parks on the south side because of the extreme gun violence that has been occurring. Ryan has proven that his events and establishments are a safe place. Ryan is known for being a positive role model amongst the youth here in our community and also in his own community. Ryan has established professional and business working relationships with many people, including the Mayor, Sheldon Neely. He's been able to work with Mr. Neely in the capacity to ensure safety and communication continues. And why can't our own mayor give that same courtesy to Mr. Cabell? I worked with Ryan for many years now at places like the Elks, the Causeway Bay, Benny's, Gregory's, and many others. All of them had no instances of violence. I worked the door that night for Ryan alongside of my 25-year-old daughter. At no time would I ever put any of my children in harm's way. The parties that were involved in this situation, they were not party goers. They never entered the event center. They had nothing to do with the event center. There was no re-entry, there was no coming in, there was no going out. There was no lines outside the door. There were no crowds outside the door. Security was on point with multiple security checkpoints. No one was able to get in with anything. I walked throughout the event center with Ryan throughout its full transformation. Ryan has invested a lot of his hard-earned money into bringing something to Lansing for not only the youth, but people of all ages, all nationalities, all occasions. That's what his vision is for Energy Event Center. I do not feel stripping his cabaret license would resolve the gun violence epidemic that's going on here in our city. We need to address the gun violence, homelessness, and the drugs overdose.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Seeing. Please state your name for the record.
Greetings, council. My name is Dan Doyle, and I am the attorney that was representing Energy Event Center and Ryan Cabell at the hearing. Throughout this course, I was always asking the council and all of the city officials to go and look at the law that applies to the situation. At the last hearing last week, I pointed out the law, which was 808.10 Section D, which required written warnings. That wasn't indicated to you before. I just wanted to make that clear to the council as a whole of the law. We wanted to look at the facts and the law, and when you look at everything in its totality, I would just ask that you all take that into consideration. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Erica Munchback, and I am the founder of Jubilee, a grassroots organization that supports households working to overcome homelessness. I was invested in the shootout that happened at Energy Event Center for a couple different reasons. My daughter's good friend was severely injured that night, and also a client that we work with through our organization, and just understanding the stories of how these 2 young people came to be at that event. I just felt compelled to, well, I care a lot. So I was really frustrated about the way that some of the things happened that night. And there's actually a news clip where my daughter talks about how it impacted her of, her friend getting injured. And also I shared that I actually called the concert that happened that night a death trap. And I found myself over the last several weeks nursing contempt for Ryan. And I just had to have a real sit down with myself and say, you don't know this man or his heart or what he's trying to do. So the way we change our community is by talking to each other and having conversations and building bridges instead of isolating ourselves on islands. So I just reached out to Ryan and said, would you be willing to have a conversation? I have some concerns that I haven't seen addressed in the conversations that I've been following. And Ryan met me that day, a couple hours later. And I have a new friend now. And the two main concerns that I hadn't seen addressed elsewhere were the time frame of the show. And when he told me why that time frame happened, I kind of understood. And he understood my point of view as far as we shouldn't have these kids out that late. And he said that other people have said that to him as well, and that he would never, ever do that again. And my other concern was the graphic nature of the lyrics that are presented. As adults, we can make, the informed decision to not put our minds and souls through that. But a lot of these kids, especially with the work I do, I have an intimate understanding of vulnerable community members, and these kids don't necessarily know the difference between entertainment and whether this is the soundtrack of what they did earlier today and what they'll do tomorrow and next week. So with our city having invested millions of dollars in Black businesses over the last several years, I've seen it myself. Ryan hasn't received any of that charity. I would really like to see us as a city, as whoever has a problem, give him another chance. Let's sit down and have conversations. He's ready to learn, and he's in a good position to make a difference in the community, and he wants to do that. He's already partnering with several organizations and has expressed interest in partnering with our organization, so I think he should have another chance. And thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that?
All right, how y'all doing? First off, I'm gonna use some of my personal time.
No, sir. Sir,
I would like to thank.
You're addressing council.
Okay.
So
well, I address council in third person. Thank you. And they understand what that means. Thank you. Because there would be no Energy Event Center. There would be no Silly Boy Productions without the people. Rule number one: the people always come first. Money is gonna always be there, but the people come first. As a businessman, this is how I feed my family. I've been been in promotion over 15 years. This is my livelihood. This is how I take care of my children. This is how I pay my bills. This is how I take care of my mother. I take full responsibility and full accountability of anything that's wrong. At the same time, you're looking at a responsible individual that took his own $60,000 over a period of 3 years, driving back and forth every single day to make sure that all my licenses were signed accurately, right, timely, fire marshal, everybody. Within those 3 years, yes, I could have done an event without nobody knowing. Yes, I could have backdoored the city and done anything, but I didn't do that. Why? Because I was raised right. The integrity of myself, I refuse to do anything wrong because I'm a strong believer in karma, and God didn't put me here to do wrong. Anybody ever asked me what was the purpose of Energy Event Center? They heard me say, we're gonna rejuvenate the South Side. Because that's where a problem is. If we could get the people here, that's the first step. I don't know any of you from a can of paint, but I know for a fact, I can get the people there. I can get the people there. Whether it's an adult or it's a youth, I can get the people there. And with voices and education and experience, I guarantee we could turn around the things that's happening in the community. I guarantee that. Energy Event Center. I'm Ryan Cabell, Silly Boy Production. That's my production company. I've been doing events in this city for over 15 years. You probably never heard of my name, Ryan Cabell, because nothing has ever happened. And you can name any club, any bar, any lounge in this entire city and talk to the owner and then ask you about my integrity. I just ask that everything happen the legal way. From everything you've seen in black and white from all these news stations, let's do it the legal way. Give me a second chance. I guarantee you'll never see me again with a problem.
Sir, your time is up. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing no one, Elizabeth, if we could have you please come forward. Thank you, Elizabeth. Ms. O'Leary, you went over at our last council meeting your findings and your determination. Are there any council members that have questions at this time? Councilmember Spatafor.
Ms. O'Leary, thank you for being back here again. I know we gave you an audible last week to bring you back here. So questions about findings around the show license. I know we're sticking to the findings, but if you would bear with me just a minute. Do restaurants and bars and things, when they charge cover for having a band, is a show license required in that situation?
Mm-hmm. I would think that anything that arises under the definition.
Elizabeth, can you make sure your mic is on? Is the green light on?
Green light's on. Can you hear me?
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I would say that anything that falls within the definition of a show license, which is a circus, a menagerie, or other exhibition, entertainment, carnival, or show of any nature for which money or other consideration is in any way demanded or received for admission thereto, it would be required.
Do you know, as a matter of course, do we require that of other establishments in the city that are regularly having live entertainment for charge?
I haven't done research as to other entities.
That's it for the moment, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions? Yes, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. With your findings of fact contained within the document, I guess, can you describe and explain how many security guards have been determined to be working there, and how does that play into the provision that requires measures necessary to prevent violence?
I would just refer you back to my findings of fact and recommendation with respect to the security guard numbers. And my role was not to say what should have happened. My role was to make a determination based upon the facts and the evidence presented at the hearing.
Okay. Well, so I appreciate you referring me back to the document. In the document, I noticed that there were at least 10 security guards in one of the exhibits. I think it's a Facebook post that names how many security guards were there. So I guess I wondered, did you also find 10? And if you can't answer that, I guess that's acceptable now. My second question would be, was there any written communications prior to that have outlined any warnings of violations prior to the seeking revocation?
I believe you've received all of the exhibits along with the transcript for the hearing that was conducted. My decision was based upon the hearing itself on August 24th.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess for the record that, Elizabeth, I appreciate you and your job for the city that you do, but I guess by just answering, and this happened last week, the bare minimum during a hearing for the purpose of talking about the findings and what's in the report and what happened, it's just hard for me to just accept that the answer is going to be like not answering and then just saying, refer to the document. So I don't know. Is it like, were you told not to be able to answer them, or is it you're not sure what is in here, or you don't want to answer? I guess
I have appeared here as a courtesy. This is not a hearing. The hearing was conducted on August 24th of this year. Nobody has told me what to say. Nobody will tell me what to say. So does that answer your question?
I guess, no. My question is it true that you determined there were 10 security guards present? Isn't that true?
I'll refer back to my report. You have all the exhibits, you have the transcript, you have the testimony that was given under oath. All of that was forwarded.
Okay. Well, I will reserve questions for later.
Councilmember Hussein.
Sure. First of all, I want to apologize for not being here last week. I'm sorry. I did fall ill, and I was glad that the council took a pause so that folks could continue to ask questions, the tough questions, get questions answered, and that I had an opportunity to listen and to consider and to wait in. I'll have more to say later, but I want to make sure, we have an absolute responsibility to make sure that we are acting ethically, legally, and in the best interest of the city. And so I want to make sure that we're not circumventing any aspect of our own ordinances. A lot has been, I actually watched last week's playback last Tuesday, and there was quite a bit of commentary, I think, at the podium, and even at this dais, regarding Chapter 808, and specifically point 08 that deals with revocation, then also point 10, so 808.10, where subsections A and B speak to making sure that you maintain peace essentially on the premises, and then subsections C and D talk about warning process, written warning process. The way I read that, because if in fact we have to give a written warning before revocation, then we certainly don't want to circumvent that. However, the way I read it, maybe I'm wrong, is that actually pertains to the city's effort to recoup costs for any services that may have been rendered to a licensee in order to keep their premises safe. My understanding is what we're not looking at doing tonight is going after Ryan Cabell for probably what were considerable costs, to have 26 officers out there, to have investigation thereafter, to have a hearing, to engage in mutual aid. That's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is a revocation. So based on the way that the ordinance is written, and based on, again, section 808.08, are we able to even consider revocation based on the fact that they weren't able to keep the premises safe? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that written warning piece doesn't actually pertain to the revocation, that pertains to city costs. And so I think that's a question for law.
Sure. Your understanding of section 808.10 versus section 808.08 is correct. The requirement of 2 instances with a written warning within 180 days is contained in section 808.10 subsection C, pertaining to recovery of costs, city costs. There are a number of bases for revocation, one of those being a failure to pay those costs under 808.10, but there are other bases contained in 808.08, which were contained in the notice of hearing and in the letter from the police department regarding operating his or her business in violation of any other provision of this chapter, other ordinance of the city or state or federal law. So there are 2 different things that we're looking at here. Today would be revocation, where there was never an ask regarding recovery of costs.
And Councilmember Hussein, being here when that ordinance was amended and that was added, had to do with the costs that we had incurred both at LA Globe and whatever the new name it became after that, because of the amount of police services, including public service, police department, and fire, that we were doing at at those particular events, so it was to help recover cost. Did you have anything else, Councilmember Hussein? No. Okay, I have Councilmember Spitzley, and then I have Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Madam President. I have several questions. So I read the ordinance the way you said that. Having said that, I am also looking at a letter on August 2nd, 2023 from Mr. Cabell. And I'm assuming that this was part of the hearing. It's the subject updated security plan for Energy Event Center. Was that considered during the hearing? Which exhibit are you referring to? It's not an exhibit. It's we got a copy of a letter dated August 2nd, 2023. It looks like it's from Mr. Cabell, and it says subject updated security plan for Energy Events Center. And it lists out 8 things that he has committed to do to make sure and to keep folks safe. Do you recall seeing that? I don't recall seeing that, and what I looked at were the exhibits that were tendered by the parties during the hearing. Okay, all right, thank you. When you talk about, it says it requires, and this is for the city attorney. When the language in the ordinance says keep the premises safe, I mean, what would be the definition of premises?
The cabaret ordinance specifically defines premises as the entire lot on which a cabaret is located, all parking lots, parking facilities intended for use by patrons of the cabaret and all surrounding areas within 1,500 feet of the boundaries of the lot on which the cabaret is located.
Okay. All right. I look at this August 2nd letter, and I look at the things that Mr. Cabell is committing to do to make future events safe, including coordination with law enforcement. And my concern is that revocation of his license will make it hard for him to get another one. So I will admit that at this point I'm really torn about that. On a side note, I heard what you say about your appearing here as a courtesy. But I would think that it's not a courtesy. You're here representing the city of Lansing in a revocation of a permit. So I don't understand the courtesy part. I'm happy to expand on that. I was asked by this body to be the hearing officer for this hearing. I provided my recommendation. I provided findings of facts. I provided the transcript. I have no intent of saying anything that's not contained within this.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Wood. Ms. Hagan-Lawrence. I was wondering if you could please explain to us the revocation ordinance. There's been some discussion about alternative measures to take that stop short of revocation. And could you explain to me and this body sort of what we've discussed on this issue?
Yeah, so I think initially the question was, does the ordinance provide for an option other than non-revocation or revocation? The answer, after discussion with the city attorney, is that the ordinance speaks only to revocation or non-revocation. There's not an option for a period of suspension or a requirement of an additional security plan. All of those things would require an amendment to the ordinance itself.
Okay. And that's the case. There's several different licenses in which the revocation process is spelled identically. Is that the case for all of them? To the best of your knowledge.
When we are talking about a cabaret license revocation, we are operating under Section 808 of our ordinances, which is specific to cabarets. Okay. So other types of licenses may have different requirements in terms of period of suspension or security planning required. Without going into each specifically, I can't opine, but...
I just noted that the show license and the cabaret license both had identical revocation processes. And
It would make sense that they do, but I can't speak specifically.
Okay, thank you. That's it for the moment. Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I'm looking at your analysis and recommendation in the second paragraph, and it talks about the open alcohol in a public place being a violation of the Code of Ordinances. And I guess my question is that, wasn't it determined that there were no alcohol sales inside? And I guess I wonder, is it, if there's no sales inside and there was no alcohol inside, and you're talking about bottles that were in the body cam in the parking lot, I guess I wonder, how is that attributed to the Energy Center?
Mr. Jackson, I would just refer you back to my report. You have the decision to either revoke, to not revoke, to amend my recommendation. So it's your decision. I know it's a tough one. I spent, several weeks reviewing everything in the record, reviewing the transcripts, the exhibits. I took my time on this. So now it's your turn.
Thank you. I mean, I was just, because that's what I'm trying to do, just get some of those answers, because, we talk about everything is in the finding of fact, which is, a page and a quarter, and then the analysis, which is approximately half a page. So I'm just looking at the analysis, trying to figure out, some of the rationale behind it, and just asking questions. I appreciate the answer, though. And 1,500 feet, by the way, for the record, is over a quarter mile. So fish fry, McDonald's, all those other businesses that were open, by the ordinance, has to protect Logan Square parking lot within that quarter mile. Did you talk to them?
The only people I talked to was during the hearing. The transcript is included. You have every single word that was said during the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions from Councilmember Vice President Garza.
All right, thank you, Council President. With that, I would move the resolution for the revocation of the cabaret license based on the recommendation of the hearing officer.
All right, we have a motion in front of us. Councilmember Spatafor.
Madam President, I would like to move striking findings 6, 7, and 8 from the report, as it's not been made clear to me that every establishment in the city provides awareness or provides licenses for this. So I think it's a superfluous finding related to this particular incident. I don't believe that Ms. O'Leary inaccurately included it. I just don't believe that it should be included in these findings as part of the record. So I'd move to amend the report to strike items 6, 7, and 8 regarding the show license details.
I'm not sure that you can do that, Councilmember Spatafor. This is her report.
The ordinance states clearly that we may adopt, reject, or modify the recommendations and conclusion.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
But it was made clear to me that we cannot modify the revocation.
Correct.
Rather just the findings. And I would like to strike 6, 7, and 8, given that it was not made clear to me that a bar down the street having a band that charges cover also provides show license notification. And the clerk will be here at City Council to answer that question specifically, I'd imagine.
So that is permissible?
Yes. When you look at section 808.8B, it speaks to council may affirm, disaffirm, or modify the hearing officer's proposed findings. This is her proposed findings of fact that is adopted eventually by this body. So yes, if that is the motion and passes.
All right, Ms. Spitzley, unless you're going to speak to these, we've got a recommendation on the table.
All right, I will wait for his.
Okay, so we have this recommendation on the table. Are there any other questions about striking 6, 7, and 8? Seeing none, all those in favor of striking 6, 7, and 8, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam President. I propose we strike item 13. Energy Event Center does not hold a liquor license, but patrons were captured on body-worn cameras with bottles of alcohol and red Solo cups. The testimony showed that the bottle of alcohol in question was outside the premises, and it has not been established that the liquid inside red Solo cups was in fact alcohol.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to strike 13. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we now have the revocation on the table. Are there any questions or concerns? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Just a few comments on why I believe I am voting not to revoke the license here. And I don't like that this is political at all. Ms. O'Leary having to do this, we appointed her. I guess that's a political act as far as our powers. But I really, really don't like efforts that aren't like actually gonna take care of what it's designed to do. And the mayor, I believe it was from the mayor, decided to address gun violence from this incident by, it seems like, specifically saying Energy Event Center either caused or took part or had some causal effect that they were responsible for. And I don't think they were. But two, we knew that Logan Square had problems all these times. Everything that everybody said, I came with an open mind last week, you know, like, okay, gun violence, this is serious. Yeah, it was a big, huge party that ended up in some shots fired. I wasn't there, but if that's the case, we're gonna hear about it. But then when I heard everybody speak, everybody made so much sense to me that I could not ignore that. And I'm 39 years old now, I've been going out to bars since I was 21, including what used to be the Harem, the Nut House, all that stuff down there, Taps, Duke's Salon now. How many people were killed in that quarter mile? I know for sure one, and I think it's more than that. But how many fights has there been and calls for police when the police actually sit there? I don't want to deflect it to that, but that is one thing I think of. Like, why are we going after this one incident when if you want to do cabaret stuff and you want to do hearings, there's places that had repeat action that doesn't have their license even discussed. So then when I saw that it was pointed to Mr. Cabal, and I apologize to you, sir, because I know you reached out to me about coming over and, you know, having questions answered, and I didn't take you up on it fully, and I apologize for you. But I want to hear things. I want to see the report, and I want to hear from the people. And I heard. So a couple other things. I'll try not to talk too long on this, but I didn't see that any warnings were given. I don't know that that's required, but if you're going after a person's business that is on its face a positive business that went through our city licensing processes, which is no joke, as been testified, at least I feel like they should get some courtesy, like if there's a problem, hey, this happened, you need to tighten it up, here's where I think you could have violated even a fine, but we're going straight for it because the underlying political message or the underlying thing is that this is going to address gun violence, and I'm not sure it is, and I don't like the way it's going out. So that's that. Also, there's been an updated security plan where, from my understanding, based on this document, which, you know, is roughly 142 pages, I saw that there's at least 10 security guards that were working that day, and one of the things that we have to look at is measures to prevent violent behavior, and having multiple, and again, I read trained security guards would be, I think, sufficient to maintain peace, especially in the actual event center. Now, expanding to the parking lot is, again, you've heard from my questions, I have a problem with expanding. I understand it's in the ordinance that a patron with a license is supposed to protect 1,500 feet, and I looked it up. That's 0.28 of a mile. That's once around a track. That's 4+ football fields. That's from here to the Capitol and beyond. That's far. I used to be a bouncer downtown, and the job was, if there's problems, you put them outside and you shut the door. If people start shooting out there or fighting, you pretty much lock the door. I mean, you don't send your 10 people out there to see what's going on, even though my understanding is that some of them did go out there eventually. Now, could a cruiser have came by and parked? At some point, I mean, if there's a party, maybe they didn't see back there. Maybe they didn't drive down MLK or Holmes and kind of peek into that big parking lot and see apparently people gathering. But had they and pulled up, that's one thing. We do know there's officers assigned downtown, multiple cruisers. Things still happen. So, you know, that's one thing. And then again, I've heard so many people in support. I don't want to downplay the fact that for 2 weeks, people came in here basically saying things that made, to me, 100% sense. Even one lady who lost her 2 sons to gun violence says this is not a solution. Miranda Hinton, we go decades back, lovely lady and family. She lost her kids. She put her kids' names out here and said this is not going to do it. In fact, she's the one that said where her 2 sons died at, the Pleasant Grove Plaza, that Mr. Hussein worked so hard to, and everybody else worked so hard to keep right, has had multiple homicides. And how many businesses are right there that, I guess they don't have a license, but a cabaret license, but they at least are, had they had a cabaret license, they would be responsible or could be jeopardized. So I don't like that. So we have the mother of those 2, and we had a lady here today who said that one of her kids or her kid's friend was there that day, and she is even saying this is not the solution. So I don't want to ignore those people. I don't like how it all originated, and no offense to Ms. O'Leary, but if you work for the city of Lansing and your boss is basically the mayor of Lansing, and he is the one who's putting his name out there like, this is what I'm gonna do for gun violence, and then says, Chief, I need this report about everything that happened. We're going after a cabaret license because that's gonna solve some gun violence issues. I don't think so, it's not going to. But then we asked Ms. O'Leary, and that was my objection when we appointed Ms. O'Leary. I said, she's an employee for the city, and I don't think that she can, no matter what she looks at, can come back with any other recommendation. And, you know, the analysis, the questions I had about it never were answered. And I'm still not exactly sure why, but I've been told to refer to the stuff in the document. So when I go into the document, I'm looking at how many security guards, a lot, all these different things. So it's just another reason why, you know, I can't vote to revoke Mr. Cabal's license, given all of these facts and reports and what I've heard from people and what I've asked and the questions I've had. And that's just my comments. I wanted to say something just to put on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Ma'am?
I didn't have the microphone on, so I called you down.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Elizabeth, for this. You did a great job. I know it was tough, and so I wanted to appreciate you and thank you for this. Last week, a lot of stuff happened last week, but I was prepared to vote to revoke the license. And I can't, right? I can't today. I think that, you know, while the law is black and white, and the warnings don't necessarily apply in this situation, I look at and it's unfortunate that August 2nd letter was not part of the exhibits, because it does lay out a very comprehensive approach on how you were going to do things different. And so it's unfortunate that wasn't part of the exhibits. But it is a great document. And, you know, if you do half of that, I think you would be successful. And so, you know, I appreciate you sending that to me. I think it's successful. You know, laws are black and white. I mean, you get pulled over by a police officer and he makes a decision of whether or not to let you go with a warning or to give you a ticket. And I think that's where we're here now. We're not here to piece apart the report, because the report is what the report is. That's just the bottom line. And so today, my decision and my challenge is to look at this and figure out, you know, is this a decent businessman where circumstances happened outside of his control, and is he going to put forth measures to try to make sure it doesn't happen again, because no one can guarantee that it'll never happen again, and I think that's true. My concern is, you know, we have this Logan Square, and it has been a problem child from, you know, illegal gambling to sex trafficking to whatever. You know, your event, your business does not cause the Logan Center craziness debacle. And I don't think that, you know, not revoking your license, I don't think revoking your license or not revoking your license will have any impact on what's going to happen in a couple days with us taking over as receivership. I don't. You know, it's just not. I think that, you know, we have a good case. We've been working with this thing for a long time. You're not the cause of it. You're not the cause of gun violence. And I agree with Councilmember Jackson, which is rare, but I do agree with Councilmember Jackson that this is not going to address gun violence. And I don't like political stunts either. So I cannot vote to revoke your license. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Spitzley. Are there other councilmember comments? Councilmember Hussein.
Yes, I'll try to be brief. I have also vacillated back and forth on this. This is one of the probably more difficult votes I've had in my time on council. I wanted to address a few issues before I do vote, however. Some of the things that were said at the podium bothered me, but not because I was upset with the folks. I was upset that maybe we haven't done a good enough job letting folks know what we are trying to do to get after some of the issues in our community. There were a lot of comments about liquor licenses and why we haven't looked at revocation of liquor licenses. We don't have the power or authority to revoke liquor licenses. What we have done, whether it's quickies, whether it's Vons, the list goes on, is we have not only written resolutions to the Liquor Control Commission asking for revocation. We've gone so far as to actually inviting the Liquor Control Commission into our public safety meetings and begging them to revoke some of these licenses of some of these businesses that are absolutely predatory and preying upon some of our absolute most vulnerable and some of our most vulnerable areas of this community. We have got out in front of, with resolutions and letters and decisions by this body, we've gotten out in front of liquor license holders that are trying to go from just beer and wine to also doing hard liquor. We have begged our state legislature and also put forth the resolution to have them please take a look at the Liquor Control Act and amend that Liquor Control Act in a way where we don't see, I live just southwest of Pleasant Grove and Homes. We have 5 active liquor licenses at that intersection. We have an absolute deficiency with regard to the state statute, and we are paying the price each and every time. So we have asked, and we have asked, and we have asked. Unfortunately, we only have the power of what we have power over. We do not have power over liquor licenses because that is under the purview of the state and the Liquor Control Commission and, of course, the Liquor Control Act. That's the first piece. The second piece is there were a lot of discussion about people doing things the right way and the wrong way. And there was this implication that people doing the wrong way have been able to get away with it. I can speak to my time on City Council, and I can speak to some of the work that I've done and some of the advocacy I've been engaged in. And what I can tell you is we have shut down illegal, unlicensed, and unregulated spots on South Waverly, in Metro Plaza, Southland, several within the Logan Square. And a lot of those, frankly, is because I went in and damn near investigated myself. Because young people I've been working with have been in those places. Some of them have been accosted. I've had young people shot that I work with. Frankly, the night of the event, I was on scene. As a matter of fact, I got to give credit to Aaron Blankenberg. I saw Aaron Blankenberg with Advanced Peace run into one of the fights in the parking lot and work to break up that fight, put himself in danger. So I was there and I was infuriated, frankly. There were a number of young people that I work with. I'm a teacher by day. Number of young people that were coming out of that place that were, the fear was palpable with regard to some of those people. I say all this because we have done a lot. We've been trying to do a lot, and it's not just getting after the bad actors with the stick. It's also trying to provide the carrot, whether that be facade improvement grants for small businesses in Southwest Lansing, whether that's getting business owners together. As a matter of fact, Ryan attended one of our meetings just last week, I believe it was, 2 weeks ago, where we are trying to advocate, and we're trying to place make, and we're doing all those things. We've tried to elevate. We were actually elevating on the Logan Square, a lot of conversation about the Logan Square. The reason that was sold at the end of 2018 was because the previous owner, Bassam Miram, was tired of, frankly, me. And the fact that we were looking at a potential nuisance action in circuit court. We had actually hauled him in. We had hauled in his property management team, which is still in place today with David Weshe. And so he ended up having a private auction that sold. We were hoping that when the Zangs took over, that things would get better. Since that time, we've shut down additional illegal gambling establishments. We've shut down businesses that are serving as fronts for drug operations. We've investigated accusations of sex trafficking and things of that nature. And we now have filed a motion in court to go after them. So to say that we aren't doing anything couldn't be further from the truth. Have we obtained the fruit that I wish we would have obtained? Absolutely not. There's a heck of a lot of work to do, and we're continuing to do that work. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, some of the things I just referenced. With regards to this particular spot, the reason I'm struggling is I know Ryan. I've been able to meet with Ryan. I've been able to go through the suite. I was madder, and Ryan knows this, I was madder than hell that night. And I was infuriated because, again, in my community, here we go, having 5 young people shot at a location that has been a problem property for a very long time, and I'm talking about the Logan Square. And so I could not fathom how frankly, number one, how we thought it would be a good idea to issue a license at this particular location. Because of the history there, because we know we have inept ownership, because we know we have inept management, and because this is an extremely unique location, there's this sea of asphalt. A lot of the places that were referenced tonight, from the Elks to Gregory's, those are single site, single use locations. They have limited parking, and frankly, I think they know and they're able to control those parking lots the vast majority of the time. This is an impossible scenario for anybody. I don't know how we could ever ask anybody. And as a matter of fact, Ryan stated it, his attorney stated it, just about everybody that supported Ryan has come down on the podium and stated it, that it's because of that unique kind of configuration of that particular property, how do you ever control that parking lot? And I don't know that you can. But again, angry for a number of reasons, but I was able to sit down with Ryan. Ryan is a good person. I think he's a solid business owner. I think he, is trying to do business. As he said, this is his livelihood. And so what I'm struggling with is that, and Peter, I really appreciated your line of questioning. I was hoping there was some middle ground. I was hoping there was an ability to suspend and potentially, have some type of plan come forth that would be, I guess, palatable to both the administration and the chief of police, this body. I was hoping that we could put him on a probationary period, but to just know that we can either revoke or not revoke, that's tough for me. This isn't for me, again, because I appreciate Ryan, I appreciate what he's trying to do. It's not a question of Ryan as a licensee holder. Where I'm struggling is he ever going to be able to keep people safe in that space? Because should we not revoke, and should one more young person get shot at that location, that is literally blood on our hands. And that's where I'm struggling. That's why I'm going back and forth. As I sit here and talk now, I'm struggling with this vote. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussein. Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. I was a solid yes last week and had a lot of questions after a lot of public comment, emails, countless emails. I do have a question regarding, to the city attorney, regarding rental properties in the city of Lansing. I read that all rental properties in the city of Lansing except owner-occupied single-family dwellings are subject to section blank, which is the rental property. retail business rental units subject to rental laws in the city of Lansing. And I did not ask you this ahead of time, so if you don't know for sure.
What section are you looking at?
1460.44.
I can circle back with the city attorney. It's
Okay.
my understanding that that is regarding residential, that's under our housing code.
Okay. My question is, if there is any licensing that goes along with a business that rents out space in the city of Lansing, why we're not targeting, and Councilmember Wood is shaking her head, why we're not targeting the landlords in this situation. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one statement, then we're going to take a vote unless there's somebody else that has a comment. I've listened very carefully to the arguments that have been made up here. I read Ms. O'Leary's report. The one thing I will remind this council, and again, you have 105 days to listen to me say it again, and that is the fact that having been here, I appreciate the fact that we have a, quote, plan in front of us, but I'm going to tell you that's as good as the paper that it's written on. We have nothing that we can hold them to. As the city attorney's office said, this is either voting for a revocation or not. We cannot make that a condition that he's going to follow through on those. Those of you that have sat here, as we have had other issues with other commercial properties where we have been promised and pledged and oaths signed in blood that they were going to do something, and when it didn't come to fruition, and I have turned and looked in that chair, not at you, Lisa, but looked at that chair and said, what are you going to do about it? The answer has been, it was a gentleman's agreement, there's nothing we can do about it. So, in dealing with this and looking at the fact that there were, and I realize we struck it from the findings, but the show license, there were a number of other issues that were involved in this other than just this section. And in talking to the city attorney, it's my understanding that tomorrow Ryan could come back to the clerk's office and apply for another cabaret license at a different location. I think what we've heard over and over, and even from him himself, is the fact that this particular location is problematic. So with that, we have a motion on the table that the Lansing City Council hereby modifies the hearing officer's proposed finding of fact, and the recommendation for revocation is effective immediately. That is the motion that is before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. So I have 2 noes?
I think there were
3 noes. Okay, it passes. That will be on the council agenda this evening for a vote. With that, we move on, Jake, I saw Mr. Brewer here. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yes. Jake, the first, Mr. Brower, the first item before us is has to do with the HRCS budget amendment, and that would be moving the money from, is that, I don't have the resolution in front of me. Oh, there it is. This is it. Okay, this is a $500,000, and this would be taking out of state revenues and moving it into HRCS operation for hoteling. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is recognizing $500,000 in state revenues to be appropriated in the HRCS, excuse me, Human Services appropriation for $500,000. This is a residual portion of a budget adjustment considered last week.
Correct. Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, President Wood. I understand. Just to make sure, I heard President Wood say that this was a $500,000 allocation for the hotel through HRCS for hoteling. I did not hear you say that. Is it for hoteling or not? I did receive some concerns from the agency saying that they did not have adequate funding to keep people in the hotel program. So I just want to make sure that that I understand.
Yes, and it's listed on the resolution itself. We note the Human Services and Racial Equity appropriation in operating, and we distinguish it as for the purpose of hoteling. We also refer to that in the whereas segments of the resolution.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, so the $500,000 is for hoteling?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify too. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the holdover amendment last week because we didn't
Yes,
have
it is.
an adequate number of votes to recuse
Yes,
you
it
from
is.
the conflict that you have. So, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Koss.
Thank you, President Wood. Emily, did you find out about the hoteling money from Syntop, if we've received that yet?
Yes, and I think that was sent to Council. Jake's answer. Do you want to go over that?
Yes, so I did respond to several questions that were asked in the previous meeting by email. One of the questions, a specific one here, was regarding hoteling costs, and that just referred to the fact that we had contracted with Advent House Ministries to provide this temporary emergency shelter through a hotel accommodation. The questions related to the SIMTOP specifically, I'd refer to the City Attorney's Office. However, we did receive the settlement of around $10,091.78, which we have deposited into the general fund, credited against the expenditures made for this purpose. And so that all occurred in the last fiscal year. So we'll be carrying forward those additional funds that have been freed up into the current fiscal year at a later date when we consider the residual appropriations from last year.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So with that, Vice President Garza.
Okay, with that, I would move the HRCS budget amendment.
Yeah, just, he's making the motion first. Okay. Go ahead, make the motion.
Okay, with that, make a motion to move the HRCS budget amendment.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Do you have a?
It's the same issue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
do it.
So we were looking at the amendment, the motion that's in the packet, in our packet.
Yes.
And it talks about $100,000. Am I on the wrong one?
No, here, I got it.
It says the budget amendment fiscal year 23-24 restoring HRCS hoteling.
It's number D.
And when I click on it, it must be mixed up online because it talks about the $100,000. That's why I was concerned. It talks about whereas storm damage has brought in $100,000 in it.
It's also in.
No, it's in this one as well.
Oh.
It just didn't get, she cut and pasted.
No, that's why I was wondering. I
Yeah.
got confused, so.
No.
We're both sitting over here confused.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna worry about it.
Okay. all right.
Okay, as long as.
We're good. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that, I would move to recuse myself and I pass the gavel.
All right, thank you, Council President. We have a motion to recuse Council President Wood. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes.
Yes, Councilmember Spatafor.
I would move. Madam President, I'm sorry to be difficult, but I think
That's
Councilmember
okay.
Spitzley and I would like to move striking the whereas related to the storm damage.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will make sure that that is struck so that it's not confusing.
Because I am confused.
There must have been an intern that day because there's no way Sherry did that.
Not a problem. Okay, that was friendly. Yeah, we can do that. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the HRCS budget amendment, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so that was 7 with 1 recusal. Okay. Mr. Bauer, you're up again.
Excellent. And referring back to the questions that were in the previous meeting, I did determine why the general fund debt service increased between the FY23 and 24 budgets, and I sent that answer to you. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask. I'm also looking into reconciling the latest staffing reports on vacancies, but there will be a report that will be provided per the quarterly schedule that has been previously established. So we're coming up on that really soon.
Mr.
Yes,
Brower?
we should be getting it October 7th.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Mr. Brower, I'm not questioning that you sent it. I did not receive it. Could you resend that at a different time? It's not urgent tonight, obviously. Thank you.
Can do. Speaking specifically through the chair regarding the budget amendment for the Storm Disaster Contingency Fund, this reflects on a available fund as defined by the Michigan Department of Treasury's Uniform Chart of Accounts related to disaster contingency. We will probably all recall in recent memory the storm damages that occurred, the $100,000 that was in the previous week's budget adjustment related to the East Side storm, as well as storm damages, which we've itemized coming up on $500,000 in relation to this more recent storm across the city of Lansing. These include storm damages, cleanup costs, and so forth. Overall, what this appropriation would do is that, in consideration that these are expenses that we have that per the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, we must have an appropriation before we make an expense. We are setting aside these funds in anticipation, but not having the exact details of when and where they'll be reimbursed into a disaster contingency fund. And this is really future-proofing this investment that as we eventually submit for reimbursement from FEMA as an eligible expense, we plan to recover all of these funds that we appropriate for the immediate purpose of this storm damage repair, but also would then leave us this fund whole going into the future that we can then consider for future emergencies that may befall the city of Lansing. And so the way that this would presumably operate then is we'd make our initial transfer of $500,000 into a separate fund on our general ledger. You'll see this going forward in our audited financial statements and our annual budget. In each year, any appropriation or expenditure that is made out of this appropriation would be either to be recovered through eligible grant, emergency FEMA reimbursement, or otherwise reimbursement through additional general fund transfer. And either of these possible contingencies would then come before your board, either in a grant or emergency aid acceptance or a general appropriation for any funds to restore this amount.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few questions, Jake.
Yes.
So this is going to be a roll. I don't know how you say it. It's going to be a fund every year. We're going to put $500,000 aside every year for disaster, right?
Yes, it doesn't necessarily demand that we appropriate a given amount every current year, but we'd presumably set aside an ongoing appropriation, whether it be the whole amount or a partial amount, and potentially either apply it against like a contingency revenue, whether it be anticipated state reimbursement or just to use the fund balance outright.
Sure. What happens if you don't use the money for disaster relief in any given year?
It would fall to the fund balance of the disaster contingency fund, separate from our general fund.
So the disaster, when you say that, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That you're talking math, so I need you to speak in small bites for me.
No, I
When you
appreciate
say that it goes into the contingency fund, does it basically roll over? So if we don't, so for example, if we don't have a disaster in 4 years, could we have $2 million in that fund?
No, unless we were to make additional transfers into that fund, our intent would be that we'd make an initial transfer of $500,000. We'd have a series of expenses related to this most recent storm. We'd ask for reimbursement of those expenses and restore the fund back up to $500,000.
Okay.
And then we'd have that available for use.
So it would always be $500,000. So some years we might put money in it and some years we may not. Is that what you're, is that?
Yeah, and there would be through the appropriations process, this board could consider increasing or allowing the fund to deplete itself.
Is this going to be, if I may, Madam President?
Go right-
Thank you.
go right ahead.
Is this going to be kind of a restricted fund where it's just used for disaster, or in certain circumstances, could the fund be drawn out for other reasons?
Yeah, so I would refer to the description of the fund in the Michigan Treasury's chart of accounts. So this specifically is earmarked revenue for disaster contingency provisions. These include providing for planning, mitigation, response, and recovery from natural and human-made disasters within and outside the state. And so it would be restricted to expenditures falling within that purpose.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Madam President.
You're welcome. Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I did get your email. It was under Chief Strategy Officer, and I forgot that was your title, so I apologize. Secondly, you mentioned a special contingency fund under the Department of Treasury. Is this lockboxed? Like, if we get into a situation where we need the resources for other purposes, could a budget amendment unleash those to go into another, say, something else in the city that we need to fund that is operational versus disaster related, or is it permanently placed in a disaster fund?
I would say that we're placing it in the disaster fund for disaster-related purposes. However, I anticipate that there will be plenty of uses for it, whether it be for direct mitigation, response, recovery, planning purposes, or otherwise other avenues for recovery, whether it be economic recovery, financial recovery over time. We may remember the provisions of the recent COVID aid related to the state and local fiscal recovery funds.
Sure. My question is, in the future, if there's some money here and we needed some resources elsewhere in the city, could we unrestrict it through budget amendment? Or is it once you put it at this type of account, Treasury won't allow that type of funding?
Yeah, I would say that it's in the description of the fund, and I can confirm with the state potentially, it says to earmark revenue, and theoretically you could unearmark that revenue and transfer it back.
Okay. So this is not a permanent decision, but it's an ongoing and probably smart budgeting one. Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? I think mine, and if you answered it while I stepped out, I'm sorry about that, but I think mine would be that currently we know that we're going to probably utilize all 500,000 of this, understanding the cleanup process that we currently have on. So if next year during the budget process, council only wanted to put $100,000 in, as long as the account is still there, they could limit what they were putting in, correct?
Yes, you would be under no obligation for future contributions to this fund. It would be, we would hope to seek reimbursement that by way of eligible expenditures, the fund would be fully restored and you'd be able to simply reappropriate the $500,000 or an additional $500,000. But in the event that was unrecoverable for whatever purpose, you would find that where by us reporting that information to you through our annual financial audit and through the budget appropriation process.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. Jake, I know you weren't here. I wasn't here. But do you know how we handled costs from the ice storm a long time ago? I mean, where'd the cost of recovery come out of there?
So
it's probably an
I recall
unfair
there
question.
being
I'm sorry, but
yeah, I recall there being an account code created, and someone with more historical experience can speak to the specifics of what was recovered. But
well, I know somebody who is here.
We used out of the general fund revenue, the reserve fund.
Okay.
We used out of that, and then we were paid back through the state for the majority of the expenses.
Thank you.
That we had.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Jake, would it be fair to say that by creating this designated fund, we're kind of isolating the fund balance? So when we look at fund balance, we don't have this number that says this much and then the contingencies we spend on a disaster is there. Sorry, the possibility that we spend it on a disaster like we did during the snowstorm, which then would lower our fund balance. So when we're targeting our fund balance amount per ordinance, and that we are not, that we're excluding any money we'd be hoping setting aside for the use of disaster recovery.
yeah, so this would be separate from the general fund balance. So my understanding would be that it would be independent of the 12 to 15% threshold.
So different. So as Councilmember Wood explained, we used fund balance last time. This would be setting up a fund so that we were not dipping into our rainy day fund, even though probably it would be raining the day we used it.
Yes, so it would be it'd be safe from financial pressures of the general fund that you'd have this money available to use without having to worry about annual pressures of balancing your general fund budget.
Thank you.
There
Any
may
other
also,
questions?
oh, sorry.
Seeing none, Vice President Garza.
All right, thank you, Council President. With that, I would move the budget amendment for the Storm Disaster Contingency Fund.
We have a motion before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that was 7-1. Okay, next we are to the budget priorities. If you should have in front of you draft 2 of the budget priorities. 3. No, mine says 2.
They were all there at your seat.
I'm sorry. I was writing on the back of it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I know Councilmember Jackson just passed out a sheet, but before we get into that, let's go over what we have in front of us. In the yellow on page 1, these were things that were part of Committee of a Whole last time. One was $100,000 for an FTE focusing especially on housing, legal assistance for tenants, and home ownerships in the city. Is that something that we want to keep in as part of our budget priorities this year? Yes, no, maybe? Yes, Councilmember Brown.
The 100,000 for the FTE for housing, legal assistance, and homeowners, is that to work with? I'm a little brain fog real quick. Right, so I apologize. Is that to work with the housing ombudsman role?
I think it was to have someone with legal assistance, which the housing ombudsman didn't have the legal training. Councilmember Spitzley, I think.
Thank you, Madam President. This came out of our ad hoc on housing and resident safety, I seem to remember. And it was because, we heard time and time again from a lot of the tenants that they didn't understand what their rights were. And, so we wanted a full-time person within the city of Lansing that could focus on, not providing legal advice per se, but explaining to tenants what their rights are as it relates to like putting stuff in escrow and some other things. And so it came out of that committee and that recommendation.
Thank you for bringing it back to my remembrance. Thank you so much.
So I'm not seeing any objections, so we're going to leave that in. Okay, thank you. Next is fund sidewalk repair, $200,000 for a total of $500,000 with a priority placed on underserved areas. Okay, we want Councilmember Spatafor.
Yeah, the adopted budget this year is $575,000, so I'd encourage maintaining current year budget versus cutting it.
You would encourage what?
I would encourage that we either up the number from $575,000 or keep it at $575,000, but $500,000 is a reduction in what we're spending over this year.
So we need to amend that to say $575,000. Okay? Yes.
I'm fine with that, and I might be guilty of it also, but, I mean, are we really putting the, numbers in there, or are we saying it's a priority to fund sidewalk repair more, equally or more?
I think what we had decided as part of budget priorities, we were trying to actually put numbers in there so that we knew if we were asking the mayor to put dollars in there, that it wasn't just $10, we had a specific amount we wanted to see that increase by. And I think you'll see that it obviously happened because we ended up with $575,000 for sidewalks this past time. Okay? Yes, Councilmember Spatafor.
I would actually ask would the council entertain just $600,000? I think we should be upping the number considering costs, and the sidewalks they're getting better. Arguably, Public Service is doing a great job, but we'll have a report in October for you all that detailed what they did this year. But it'd be nice to see additional dollars.
So I'm seeing consensus on moving it to 6. All right. Yes, Councilmember.
Madam President, thank you. And hearing Councilmember Spatafor say we're getting a report back from Public Service, but it would be nice to know if there has been a priority placed on undeserved areas or not. I mean, we've said it. Hopefully that the report comes out in October 1 that actually says. So is there something where we can put in here where we get?
They have to pass this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So unless they have something for us, what we could put in here is that, which really it doesn't make sense to do it here.
No, I'm just trying to figure it out. It'd be nice to get an accounting of whether or not, a priority has been placed on underserved areas.
So, Councilmember Spatafor.
This report has not been prepared yet by the City Public Service Department, so
you could
Marion,
add that to it?
We'll add that
right.
request to our request to Andy.
That will get you where you want. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, and Councilman Spatafor, if we could include roads in that too. Public Service Board has, I think, routinely put in their priorities to this body for consideration, and they almost always include that in there as well. So I would love to hear what we're doing with regard to sidewalks and roads in underserved areas. We've been told, and the reason why I think this is important, we've been long told that this is science-based, this is data-based, this is, but I've also been told by folks that a lot of times it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I understand, that approach. But I also understand that there's some measure of built-in privilege, right, with regard to certain communities in terms of navigating city bureaucracy, in terms of making those complaints. And so I want to know that we are being intentional about how we're spending our dollars. Thank you.
And just to point out, on page 4 and 5 is the report from Public Service that we've been including for the last 3 or 4 years in our budget priorities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is local fund repair funding of $1.7 million for a total of $5 million, with priorities placed on the underserved areas. Yes, Councilmember.
I'm sorry.
Spatafor.
I read this evening and I had a lot of coffee. I think the FY24 budget actually adopted $6.4 million in local street funding. And maybe Emily, you can correct me.
Just very close. It was 6.3 for major maintenance, with an additional 25,000 for signalization and modernization, for a total of 6.325, if you include that.
So if we said 6.4?
Perfect.
Okay.
Instead of 5.
Instead of 5.
Yes.
Can I just add, why don't we just do 6.5 and make it an even number?
Somebody wants
You know what?
So are we saying 7? Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying.
We feel like Bob Barker over
I
here.
heard 7.
All right, 7.
I just want to make sure we're not recommending cuts in these areas.
Okay. Next is funding for the GED prep and passage program, and we never did get a figure on that. Emily, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, so if it's helpful, the average cost of a single GED test is $150, and the average cost of GED prep courses range from $70 to $300. So I guess it would be dependent on how many people you want to fund in that regard.
Do we want to leave it as it is, or do we want to put a number in? I've got Councilmember Jackson, then Councilmember Spitzley.
I was just thinking that since it is important, let's say that we actually could influence that or push the needle where there's some people, because of us, were able to take a class and pass and get their GED, then that's a big benefit. We haven't heard, I think we should keep it as is, just so that maybe the administration will put it in and be able to explain what they did. But I'd be open to keeping it with a number. But I think it's important to keep in there because of how important it actually is.
Okay, I've got Councilmember Spitzley, and then, yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Did you mean Councilwoman Spitzley to go first?
I'm good.
Okay. I just was curious if the council had any idea if there's a demographic or a certain group of folks that would be focused on with this priority.
People don't have high school diplomas. I mean, I don't think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam President. Sorry, Mark. I think we just want, we want folk to graduate, and we want folk to, and if they just demonstrate, if they don't have the money, I think that we should be helping them.
So you're not looking at targeting a group of, say, recently released incarcerated individuals or anything. This is broader.
No, most of those are involved in the program that they're able to go through, get their GED, and have that. In fact, they're getting funding to be able to do that. So I think we're talking, I'm speaking broadly here, but I think we're talking about kids that might have dropped out for one reason or another, and that now realize that an education is important, but don't have the funds to be able to do it. Correct? I'm seeing nods. All right.
Thank you,
Okay. Next is number 5 is the complaint against police. Oh, yes. This one's been taken care of because we now have.
They brought us the card.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it not?
I didn't see the cards.
Yeah, they did.
In your committee that you chair.
Yeah.
They brought them last year.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah. So this one can be taken off. Okay, number 6 was $250,000 for cold case, and they, except for, they only have one detective, but they also have gotten additional funding through the Justice Grant. So this one can be taken off. Number 7, sustainable manager assistant. This is part of what's in your request. So we want that left on.
Yes, please. If I can speak just in general on the various environmental requests, but yes, 2 of them were in there, 7 and 10. So basically, Lori Welsh is our sustainability manager. She's the sole person working hard. She's implemented a lot of things, including identified savings and actually realized various savings by switching to energy efficient things and the such. But as we all know, I mean, it's been a top priority of mine since 2018, once I started educating myself and realizing where we're going. I don't want to take forever, but there's nothing changing except for things for the worse with all of our climate catastrophes, including the new smoke from Canada, 2023 first for us in Michigan. So long story short is we emailed Lori directly and asked her, what kind of things do you need? And if you see the little spreadsheet at the bottom, that was her list. That spreadsheet totals to $144,000. And I would ask that we put that in our priorities just to show support for our
Okay, we're not
department.
talking about that.
Okay.
We're doing number 7. We'll get to yours, to the rest
All
of those.
right, I guess I'll just have to talk 3 different times instead of once, but sure, we can keep number 7, thank you.
Okay, so you want to keep on 7. Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Thank you. I was just trying to, we have all these documents, I'm confused. So 7, are we just saying, are we supporting to advocate for a sustainability manager assistant?
Yes, that's what, this was put in by Councilmember Jackson, and at this point, we're still keeping it in. Correct, Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
Madam President.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Madam President. I'm still confused because I read too much today too. So are we adding the $144,000 as part of number 7? That's what I'm trying to figure
No.
out. Okay.
What I'd like to do is get through what we've got highlighted in yellow, then go back to any council member that has other items that they would like to add on. And if they go into a section here, when Sherry puts it together, she can add them in the appropriate areas. Okay? Okay, number 8. Increasing, pardon? Councilmember Brown?
I was saying, this is the one where we got the committee room.
Yes. So I think we're good with this one. We can take this one off. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, sorry. I don't think we're all the way good, only because one of the things that everybody wanted was the ability to have a true 2-way hybrid ability to comment. I know we talked about it various times, but one of the problems would be either personnel that costs money or technology. So I think we should
Councilmember
keep it.
Jackson, you took money out of the council budget, and there has been a person hired. Now what we are determining is how that would work. That will go to city operations, that will take up that as part of the rule. So they hired someone in July, so we've got a person hired.
Does that mean we should take it off, or until we have it, we might need more money to make it happen? I don't know. Just until it happens, I figure it's a priority, but if you say it comes off, I guess.
I'm at the will of Councilmember Spatafor?
I don't particularly have an opinion either way about number 8. I think we've got the funding already, and operations will take up the rules changes as necessary.
Because that person has been added on, so they will continue. It wasn't for just a year, so they're going to have to build it into their budget.
So I guess we're getting two-way soon?
Well, we have to work through the City Operations Committee for the council rules and move that forward.
I do want to just say this is the first I've heard that the person was hired. It was today, so we haven't delayed that process.
Yeah.
Just so everyone's clear. That was not.
No, it's not your fault.
Yep.
We found out, I think in August, they had hired someone, and we just haven't.
Well, I wasn't here in July. So.
All right.
All right. Thank you. I'm good with the other way, but I think it should come out because it's already been accomplished.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so we're going to take out 8. 9, the $300,000, and wasn't there yes, Councilmember Spatafor.
Memory serves, we brought the department in-house, and it's now nearly a $5 million appropriation, so it might behoove us to remove that one.
So we can take 9 out. Okay, 10 is 400,000 additional for forestry. And that's also on your list, so we want to leave that in.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so we take that one off, that one off. Okay. Councilmember Spatafor.
Before we conclude with this, I do have a request of a few members of council. If you could reach out to me privately just with the definition of underserved, sort of when I do a report, ask for the report in public service, what underserved we're looking for, what definition of underserved we're looking for, please.
Okay. All right, and before we get to yours, we have 3 more on page 4. This came under the ad hoc on housing, which is no longer in existence, but do we want to leave these in? Number 1 was economic development planning, prepare a report for red tag. That's something I know that is being worked on in public safety. Is that good to have that, Councilmember Spatafor, Councilmember Spitzley?
We're like brothers and sisters. I think that we're doing this, right? Hopefully,
Yes.
We're conducting a study of existing rental fees. So I think we can take number 1 out.
Okay.
And so we just go on down the, I think the HRCS one, I think that's going to be included as part of our homeless.
Okay.
ad hoc.
No, these 3 right here are not.
Or not, okay.
Okay.
All right. Then
You
I
need to look at sorry, can you look at the handout one I gave you? This is the final result from your ad hoc meeting
okay,
this afternoon.
thank you. I would like to keep the housing ombudsman, asking the housing ombudsman do those things, conducting housing fairs. I don't think we've done it, but I still would like those things to continue in budget priorities. I don't know where we would put them since we don't have the ad hoc.
Okay, under the homelessness, there is on page 4 up at the top, it talks on B, which isn't highlighted in yellow. That's the housing ombudsman.
I'm on the wrong draft. Apologies.
No.
My computer has the wrong draft. Thank you. I apologize for that.
So we got it covered?
You want number,
Okay.
you want draft 3 from today.
Yes, I got it. And I'm good.
Ombudsman moved from your committee last
Yeah.
year to this year's committee, so it's still in there.
So, but again, my concern is, since we don't have an ad hoc, we didn't have an ad hoc on housing and resident safety, I still think those 2 budget priorities are important. So do we need to put them somewhere else since the committee is no longer? Or do we keep it there?
Are you talking dedicated resources, the 2 that are left?
These two are in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in here already.
Right, but we don't have the ad hoc on housing and resident safety anymore. So is it appropriate to keep it in as part of the budget priorities?
1B and 2A, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's move that under public safety.
Yeah.
Both of them?
Yep, under the public safety.
Okay, great, thank you. That works for me. Thank you.
That works for you. Councilmember Brown.
Hey, thank you, President Wood. Number 2, HRCS implement pilot of landlord incentive. I think that's a good program, but over the last year in the homelessness and solution committee, there's been a lot of changes. So I don't know if instead of HRCS, maybe economic development and planning, based how they're kind of managing more of the housing.
Okay, which number are you on?
Number 2, it currently says HRCS-A implement a pilot program to incentivize landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers. This is from the ad hoc on housing and resident last year.
Right.
This year being in the ad hoc for homelessness, we've learned there's been a lot of changes as far as who is managing or administrating different programs. So I would just say, for me, maybe it should be economic development and planning. Who does the pilot versus HRCS, just from the changes?
I don't have a druthers if that's
I don't
where
care
the.
either. If that's what you think
where
is
everybody
appropriate,
wants
that's
to
fine
move
with me.
that.
As long as it's there so
Okay.
that we can keep.
So that would be D and P. Okay?
Yes, please.
All right. Now, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Sorry for going out of turn.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I should have known the protocol. I just wanted to double down on our sustainability efforts in the city. We've made some progress by name and by actual numbers. By name, meaning that we have a sustainability manager for a few years now, Lori Welsh, who's been doing a great job, and we also have a climate action plan that still needs work, but that's what I mean by name. But by numbers, Lori has identified several grants that we utilize, whether it has to do with trash or air or getting efficient use out of our buildings and cost savings that was associated with it. So I'm proposing that we support her with what she's asked for here, and there's a list that she's come up with these various things and her estimated cost amount that's on here, and the total for that is $144,000. And I think that we should put it as a priority because hearing from a lot of council members, even Councilman Garza, I saw his nice piece in the paper that talked about how important it is for everyone, including cities, to try to do our part to limit the effects of global warming that's already showing its face in different ways. So I hope that one day cities will look to Lansing and even maybe the federal government will say, look how Lansing, Michigan did it. They started back with this, that, and the other thing, and then they rapidly increased this and rapidly reduced that. But we got to at least give them some money to work with. So that's the proposal here, is to add some money for Lori to work with. And I would move that to the priorities.
Okay. I've got Councilmember Brown and then I've got Councilmember Garza.
Thank you so much. I just got this document from you. Thank you, Councilman Jackson. I would like a little bit more notice in the future to look at this stuff. Emily, did we fund the sustainability manager assistant last year? I thought we put that forward.
Yes, and let me go back to that. So currently in the sustainability department, there's the sustainability manager full-time, a sustainability specialist full-time, and a sustainability intern who's part-time.
So we did increase from previous years. We've built that up. So Councilman Jackson, this seems like it's not been funded based on what you're asking. Some of these things look, I thought we were supporting, which I'm all for, supporting sustainability, and they were going to get grants and things like that. So this new thing looks like stuff that you would get grants for, and is the assistant manager that we already funded currently, looking to get resources to do some of these things that we just have right here just now? Because, this is right on the fly. I don't like that.
Sure. So that's my mistake on the first one where it says budget priorities from last year. manager assistant. My fault, I shouldn't have brought that forward. But the remaining is from Lori Welsh herself, just from an email, and I apologize for not having it, but basically those were the things that she identified recently as things that she wants or needs if she could get those things. So yeah, it's just trying to double down on our efforts with, a little bit of operating money, and the amount is specific to what she's requesting, which is how it totals up to that.
So we have, I'm sorry.
So what I'm hearing, Councilmember Jackson, is that number 7 has been taken care of. What we would do is substitute number 7, the budget request for the $144,000, which would be funding for marketing, training, professional development, need risk assessment, and upgrade plan, along with additional part-time employees. That's what you want to substitute there.
Yes, that would work fine. And I think you named some things that was on that list, but there's more. But it's just the amount.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, looking this over, so why do they need a $10,000 logo?
So that is part of branding, and I think it has to do with the overall plan, like to get people to know what's going on and to buy in, kind of like what branding does. I didn't necessarily pick with her about each one of these, but I trust her based on her current and past work that she knows what she wants. And if she says 10,000 for sustainability, branding, local development, and marketing, that's probably to get people on board with some of the programs, I would imagine.
Well, I just think, and I could be wrong, but if we have a communications department in the city or something else, because we have the financial empowerment talking about marketing, now we have the sustainability marketing, everybody's doing marketing. If we're hiring staff, how are we paying additional for what staff in the city are doing? So if we have graphics specialists and people in the city, how come we're not doing the marketing? So I could support some of this is on the fly, but I can't support $144,000 based on a $10,000 logo. Like the sustainability department in the city is not the city. So for me, it's redundant. Thank you.
Sure, and since we still have to pass this, I could scratch that $10,000 logo thing that she asked about in marketing, and then just make it $134,000. Just again, I didn't necessarily vet each one, and $144,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme, it's not that much money. When we're like, let's make it $7 million, whatever. Just it's like that.
Oh, absolutely, but just being responsible, because Emily said we already have an intern. It's $30,000 on an intern. So if we already funded an intern, I'm just looking at what you provided. I'm 100% supportive of sustainability and that we need all these things, but this itemized thing is what I'm talking about.
I understand. So if you want me to take that 10 off, I will. If you want me to keep it, I know that she'll be able to use however much money we put down there. Now, how they use it is ultimately up to them too.
Yeah, just a minute. Okay, so you're amending that to $134,000, is that what you're saying? Okay, and for the public that is here and those that are listening, we're still in committee of a whole, working on our budget priorities that have to be passed this evening. Councilmember Spatafor.
Yeah, it's moved at this point, but I was going to offer to Councilmember Jackson, I'd support it as is. I think this isn't actually an appropriation. It's a wish list to the administration of things that we deem appropriate. So if you're fine with $134,000, I'll support that as well. But I'm just going to support the full ask.
Okay.
I'll just stay with the 134 just to keep Councilman Brown on board.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember or Vice President Garza. Oh, no, just a second, just a minute. Okay, so I thought you had a question with this. So do we have a motion to add this in under number 7? Councilmember Jackson, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Now, do we have any other items? Vice President Garza.
All right, thank you, Council President. So I would like to set some money aside. I'm not sure how much money aside it would take to do a cost study to see what it would take to create a new community center in Southeast Lansing, Southeast Corridor of Lansing, Ward 2. We have 1 in South Lansing and 3 north of 496. 60% of our residents live in south of 496, and I think it's very important, especially when we talk about curb and gun violence, to have a community center in Southeast Lansing. So if we could set some monetary amount aside to create a study to see what it would cost to create a community center, I'd appreciate that.
So do you want $75,000 for a study?
Sure, that should.
All right, $75,000 for a study. Okay, I've got Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Madam President. Out of consistency for the years I've been sitting on this council, I don't typically support amendments that are substantive without writing, so I'm very supportive of this effort, but I'm going to stay with my no, but that's why I'm a no, Councilmember Garza, not out of any disregard for the priority, but just trying to stay consistent. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, President Wood. I support this. Definitely, Councilman Garza and I work with several different constituents in the community in Southeast Lansing, and that's been something that's been brought up is, what do we have for our community? So a study would be wonderful to see the feasibility as well as, the need would be great. And, of course, we all want things in writing, but if it's things that are in writing that, that don't make sense, that's not a reason to vote yes or no. So I'm supportive of this 100%. Thank you.
Okay. And I take responsibility for this. Vice President Garza asked me when he could bring this up, and I neglected to tell him to make sure that it was in writing. So I take responsibility for this. So it has now been an edict in writing. So
Now I gotta change my vote.
yes, you got to change your vote on that. Okay. All those in favor of adding a study for a community center on the southeast section of the city, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now, are there any other amendments? Seeing none, Vice President Garza.
Okay, thank you, Council President. With that, I would move the budget priorities.
With the amendments.
With the amendments.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, to move this forward for this evening. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Next, we are to where am I? Chief Strategy Officer ordinance. And if I'm not mistaken, there were a couple of changes that law made. Would you, Mr. Aboud, would you like to explain what those changes are? You should have this in G in front of you, and I believe in red are the changes.
Thank you. Yes. Basically, the city attorney reviewed the proposed ordinance and made a couple of changes just to clarify the ordinances so that it would comport with the city charter. It's difficult for council to dictate to the administration a job description, but we can allow for a description of responsibilities and functions in an ordinance. It comes close to the line, but that was the city attorney's recommendation, and that's why those two changes were made. Well, actually, there's three. Meet and conference, the report. So the first one is, instead of duties, changing it to responsibilities and functions. And that's on line 4. And then on line 10, C, changing duties to responsibilities and functions. And then on the second page, lines 2 and 3 shall meet in conference with the city council in March or September as opposed to report to. And we believe that those changes are consistent with the charter, or at least as close as we can get it.
Okay, are there any objections to those changes? Seeing none. With that, Vice President Garza.
All right, thank you, Council President. With that, I would move the amendment to Chapter 288.21, Chief Strategy Officer, with the 3 changes laid out to us just now.
All right, with that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Then, as for the discussion on the reports, we will hold those to the next council meeting. And I don't see Shelby here. Were you going to do the update, Mark?
Yes, ma'am. Part of the reason you don't see Shelby here is because there really is no update from last month. We're still where we are on moving people, finding places for the people there and their belongings. So no new updates.
No new updates.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So with that, is there anything else? Seeing nothing, we are going to adjourn and we'll be back here in 5 minutes. We are adjourned.